You are Locked On Lions Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Oh man, what an ending to that one. I know it's just preseason, but Jake Bates, have yourself a day, 4 for 4 on field goals. Did miss the extra point, but we're going to get into that. And Sione Vaki shines. What a day for him. Nate Sudfeld, some good, okay, but more of the same. And Hendon Hooker played the second half. We'll break that down. It's all coming up next on a live Locked On Lions postcast. I am your host, Jake Rietma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Rietma. Thanks as always for making the Locked On Sports Detroit page part of your day. And hey, how about a doubleheader today? We had Locked On Tigers postcast a few hours ago. We're back for more fun after another victory. So 2-0 for the Locked On Sports Detroit page. You love to see that, even if it is just preseason. But as always, we thank you for making the Locked On Lions postcast your first listen following that final whistle. And like today, a little bit of a walk-off. How about that? We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, on YouTube, it's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's show, well, it's made possible and sponsored by Game Time. That's right. The Locked On Lions postcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Once again, though, it's all about the Game Time app. Create that account and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. All right. Deep breath. Admittedly, I'm a little bit excited. And if you're just joining the Locked On Sports page for Locked On Lions postcast, this is just our second episode together. But if you've been with us for the entire Tigers season with Locked On Tigers postcast, I can get a little bit excited from time to time. And there was so much in this game, some good, some bad, some ugly. And what's it all amount to? Well, preseason football. And when you're playing the Chiefs, especially, and I don't know if I necessarily planned to start here, but Andy Reid plays his starters. That's part of his calling card. And so Patrick Mahomes was in there quite a bit at the beginning of the game. And yes, he did a behind the back pass and it was amazing. And Travis Kelce caught it it was the most impressive 7-yard gain you'll ever see. And now because of that, a random play from the preseason behind the back pass for 7 yards is going to be played over 3 million times. I tweeted that out. So just get ready for that. Prepare yourself. But no, we're going to break down the Lions because, like I said, there was a lot to get into. And don't laugh at my handwriting, but I've got all my notes, pages and pages of notes that we'll get into because I think there were some good things defensively. We'll start there, kind of work our way through it chronologically. I know it ended with the exciting game-winning field goal and just kind of a wild sequence there the last couple of minutes of the fourth quarter because you get the Pascal forced fumble. The Lions recover it deep in Chiefs territory. You think, great, here we go. Lions are going to go in for the game-winning score. No, they fumble and then they force the punt. And I do think Andy Reid would call that much differently if it wasn't a preseason game, referring to the Chiefs' final possession there. But I think you wanted to get Ian Book some touches, some passes, get him moving around and everything. And like I said, I think he plays that out differently if you're fighting to win that game. But nonetheless, the Lions get it back. Isaiah Williams, have yourself another day. I do want to break down the special teams because they were very poor for the most part, especially the defensive side of special teams. And what I mean by that, giving up long returns day in and repeatedly, where the Chiefs had excellent field position. The Lions definitely lost the field position battle, but they got a big special teams play from Isaiah Williams to put them in scoring position from the field goal position from the very beginning. And, Hendon Hooker, the second half, I saw a lot. I think after you watch this game, there's no mistake, no doubt who the Lions backup quarterback is to Jared Goff. It's Hendon Hooker. The touchdown he ran in showed the athleticism he has with the legs. Obviously, we know all about that. He had a couple other runs where he slid. Yes, that's right. Give him a round of applause. He slid, and we know that's going to extend the life of the quarterback. And, again, it took him all of one preseason game to find out why you slide, and executed that well at Arrowhead Stadium against the Chiefs, slid a couple of times, made some really nice throws. And you guys know me, I'm not a huge box score guy, but you take a look at the numbers and especially from the quarterback position, things you want to see from your quarterback. The accuracy was there, 12 of 15 for 150 yards, did not throw an interception, didn't have a touchdown either. And I put that down in my notes as well. Sudfeld's best drive, the last drive before the conclusion of the first half, same kind of thing. He was on time, he was on target, but these drives stalled inside the red zone, which is why you see the Lions settle for the 4 field goals. But nonetheless, again, I'm not going to sit here and we saw everything we need to know. We beat the Chiefs, the Lions, and it's the preseason. Again, we're gonna beat a dead horse a little bit by the number of times we say it's only preseason, and there's going to be some good, some bad, and some ugly. But overall, I'm not going to lie. I wanted Bates to make that last field goal, and after they got the Lions got the punt return from Isaiah Williams, I was thinking, let's go win this thing, and it kind of got the competitive juices flowing in me, and I can only imagine what it's going to be like for the regular season. But welcome one, welcome all. It's a live Locked On Lions postcast, a doubleheader on Locked On Sports Detroit. The Tigers beat the Yankees earlier today 4-0, and then the Lions in preseason take down the defending Super Bowl champion, back-to-back Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs, 24-23. As always, we welcome you to get into the comments. If you're watching live on YouTube, Locked On Sports Detroit, this is your friendly reminder to subscribe as well. And if you're catching us on the audio-only version on Apple Podcast, Spotify, I almost said Spotify. That's a combination of all of them. Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, of course, always free and available there as well. Defensively, really liked what we saw, obviously, from Josh Paschal. Listen to a little bit of the radio broadcast from Dan Miller, Lomas Brown, and TJ Lang. And yes, the final strip sack is what's going to stand out on the stat sheet, but Paschal made some nice plays all the way through defensively. Stephen Gilmore, defensively, I had him unfortunately as a minus when he got beat for the Chiefs' last touchdown there. That was one where you look at the play and he's in position, but the ball just sailed on him a little bit. And unfortunately, that's the life of a defensive back, and Cornell Powell is the one that made that catch. It was a 64-yard touchdown, and that's a backbreaker. You just can't have that. And I don't want to just cherry pick the negatives, but Stephen Gilmore is a guy that's kind of fallen out of favor, or at times had, and you wonder if he's going to be a guy that makes this team. And I mentioned the turnovers. That was a glaring minus, 3 turnovers for the Lions today. The exchange was Jonathan Knight and Hendon Hooker, obviously the big one that doesn't end up, in the game sense, coming back to cost the Lions. But you just can't fumble when you've got you're in the goal to go situations. And I know that's pointing out the obvious, but I'm watching that thinking, my goodness, what are we doing? All you had to do is just hold on to the ball and you kick the game-winning field goal. Although maybe that was their plan all along, because as it played out, obviously the Chiefs get the ball back, and like I said, Andy Reid probably calls that series way differently if it's a real game. But Ian Book, a couple of incomplete passes, you keep your timeouts, and then you get a chance to go have the game-winning drive. And to Hendon Hooker's credit, that's exactly what he did. So it's a live Locked On Lions postcast. We'll talk about and I mentioned it in the open, so we've got a couple more minutes here. I put down in my notes that Sione Vaki, that's a tough one to say. I always want to say Vaki, but he showed a lot today. Again, a big first half, especially on that last first half drive, where Sudfeld found a little bit more of a rhythm, and a lot of the rhythm was completing passes to Vaki out of the backfield. I mean, he showed his ability to be that back that provides a receiving target out of the running back position, which we know is so critical in today's game. And so if he's a guy that can add a change of pace and be a substantial addition in the backfield, you look for Vaki to complement the weapons that the Lions already have, obviously, with Gibbs and Montgomery. So that being said, I think, the competitor in you feels good at the end of this game, because the Lions did, in fact, get the victory. Jake Bates, 4 for 4, did have the missed extra point, but I think you solidify the kicker position. You solidified the backup quarterback position with these first 2 preseason games. And obviously, there only being 3 preseason games instead of 4. You have to start nailing this type of stuff down. And again, there's still one more preseason game Saturday at Ford Field. And so, I don't think this is necessarily etched in stone, but I got to believe Hendon Hooker is going to be quarterback number 2 when the Lions kick it off for real. But let's get into some comments. I appreciate everybody tuning in as well. S-Dog, you were on the Locked On Tigers postcast earlier today, so a doubleheader for you as well. Detroit 2-0 today. First Tigers, now Lions. Bates worries me, but hit the game winner. Yeah, I guess, and I understand the worry because of the missed extra point, but man, he's a weapon. He just stuck. The first one was, let me pull it up here. The first one, I believe, was a 50-plus yarder. And I mean, it would have been good from 70. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but let me get the scoring plays up here. So obviously the way the game started, not ideal when you've got back-to-back scoring drives for the Chiefs, but to the Lions defense's credit, those are 2s and 3s going against Super Bowl champion Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, the list goes on, and they held him to 2 field goals. And then that fumble is what cost the Lions so dearly on special teams. Yeah, obviously you can't have that, so they get the Xavier Worthy touchdown. But Bates's first field goal was 55 yards. And then he had the 23-yard field goal, which is obviously a chip shot, 32-yard field goal, and then the game winner, a 43-yard field goal. So 4 for 4. Can't do any better than that, but I know the missed extra point. All right, we're a little overtime on this opening segment, and for that, I apologize. Just lots of good stuff to get into on a Locked On Lions postcast. So don't go anywhere. We keep it rolling. In just a minute, we'll talk about that Nate Sudfeld versus Hendon Hooker battle in more detail and wrap it up with more Locked On Lions postcast. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started on a victorious Locked On Lions postcast. 24-23 winners over the Chiefs. Back in a moment. This episode of the Locked On Lions postcast is brought to you by Game Time. That's right. Game Time is the only ticketing app you'll ever need. Why do I say only? Well, because it's the best. Get this. Game Time allows you to see all-in pricing. And I jumped right to that because it's my favorite feature in the app. Now, you do have to turn on the all-in pricing feature. It's easy to do on the app because the app is super easy to use. But my goodness, how many times we can all relate to this? You think you get a great deal on a ticket. You go to checkout. It's not a great deal anymore. Fee. No, the all-in pricing feature allows you to see exactly what the total price is. It's peace of mind, simplicity. That's how I like it. Now, other nice parts about the Game Time app, I could go on and on and on, but the priority last minute deals is super nice. You can save 60% off by buying last minute. And that's for everything: sports, concerts, comedy, the theater, you name it. Sometimes you procrastinate and it's okay. We understand. We get it. Or you're feeling spontaneous. That last minute deal, you can save up to 60%, which is awesome. And the other thing I'll say, I like the easy to use app with the seating views. Nice panoramic, high res photo from your seat. So none of that grainy, renderings or anything like that. No, it's a real photo. So you can see exactly where your seat's going to be. Full transparency. You got to love that. Lowest price guaranteed. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a better app. I'm telling you, or find a better price. This app checks every single box. That's why it's the best. That's why you got to use it. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time, or NFL tickets, or concert tickets, or, the theater, the comedy, whatever it may be. Take the guesswork out. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create that account, redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, I want to take some comments in this second segment because, again, that's what makes this fun. And if while we're still getting to know one another, and if you're not a regular on the Locked On Sports Detroit POSTCAST page. Well, what are you waiting for? Join us. We were doing this every night after Tigers games. And now as we turn the calendar into preseason football, we might have some double headers like we did today. It's all Locked On Sports post-game destination. And that's what it's all about. And I love getting everybody involved, let your voice be heard. My background's in sports talk radio. I was at 97.1 The Ticket, the flagship for the Detroit Lions, Pistons, Red Wings, Tigers, for 5 years. And that's what my background was in. Did a lot of post-game shows. The phone lines like to light up. And so we'll do the same here on a Locked On Lions postcast. Let's riff, let's ref, let's talk all things Detroit, and in this case, Locked On Lions postcast. And those that caught the final episode of the week with Matt Derry, I was on that with him. What a great job Matt Derry does with the Locked On Lions. And what's great about that is he and I have an awesome working relationship, 1-2 punch. We're going to have you covered, and that's what makes this job fun, and that's what makes it the best, is the audience that's willing to participate and get involved. So that's my spiel. It's a little bit long and overdone, but hey, it's the preseason, so we've got time for that. S-Dog sounded like Hooker had a good game. I think Williams deserves to be on the team as well. Yes, that is one of the position battles. Yes, we'll start with Hendon Hooker. I mentioned his numbers and everything. Showed the ability to do it on the ground as well. One more dynamic you got a game plan for. But yes, Isaiah Williams, I'm getting close. I'm getting close to say put him on the roster. I'm getting close to saying that in ink, because another huge game for him as well. And I think he was fantastic with the way he showed that he can make some plays. I also liked, you got to give him credit the way, and I apologize, my box score isn't loading right now, so I don't have the exact numbers, but he made some plays on special teams as well. That nice punt return at the end of the game that set the Lions up, and that's one more wrinkle you can add. And I talked about this in the last postcast that we did after the Giants game, is when you're a fringe player and you're on the bubble, if you will, and you're trying to make the roster, there's no doubt the player personnel meetings discuss other ways guys can impact the game, other ways they can add value. And Isaiah Williams, from what we've seen, checks that box. And I know it wasn't perfect all the time today, and Sudfeld missed him a couple of times and so on and so forth, but I think he's a guy that makes this team because of the value he can, and throw another wrinkle in there. He's a guy you can hand it to on a jet sweep. And, I think I mentioned this last week, but I was on the Locked On Illinois or Locked On Illini podcast last week talking about Isaiah Williams. He went to Illinois, and they said, does he have a chance to make the team? I really think he does, especially after what we saw today. All right. Yes. Another check-in here. Betts did, in fact, Matthew Betts had a sack today. I put that in my notes. That was good to see. And again, overall, I thought the defensive line, that is, showed some signs that there can be some depth pieces there as well. All right. Other comments. MDH. Host fee, we've got a replacement for Prater. Yes, finally, the Lions kicking questions have been answered with Jake Bates. I also I said this to Derry the other day when I was on his show, to Matt Derry. I like a good story. I mean, the guy was playing in the UFL for the Michigan Panthers not too long ago. I mean, in the spring, and now he's got a chance to be the kicker. And I think he is. I think he's the kicker for the Detroit Lions. I read one of the comments here. One of my guys from the Locked On Tigers postcast checking in, Rufus, the El Gato de Baseball. There you go. First Locked On Lions podcast. Good stuff here. All right. MD Host Fee says, before we give Hooker the second string, he needs to start next week as he is playing against third stringers. That's a good point. Yep. He's playing. Yeah. The Chiefs obviously have their third string defense in there down the stretch, with Hooker playing the second half compared to some of those guys that are going to be starters. So that's fair. I think that's a really great point. I wish I would have thought of that. So thank you. And again, I said this last week, it's worth repeating too, that there's going to be a lot of knee-jerk reactions, and I'm guilty of it. And that's what it's all about. And not that I don't say that obviously knee-jerk reaction has negative connotation, but that's what makes this fun. But at the same time, there's a more calculated, thought-provoking process that the player personnel staff will obviously take, and that incorporates what they see in practice, probably even more of a priority on what you see in practice on the ones versus ones live reps, what we see in those joint practices and things that aren't always, knowledge or information that's just not available to the public unless you're at practice. And so depending on the development of Hendon Hooker, because there were some times too where I felt like he panicked in the pocket. That sack on third down, I had that written down. It was a 3rd and 2. And the Lions, or it was a 2nd and 2, and the Lions don't end up picking up a first down there in the sack on 3rd down. So I'm not sitting here saying, pounding the desk that Hendon Hooker has arrived or anything like that, but I think it was a significant step forward for him. All right. We are going to wrap it up and tie a bow on this one. Man, football season's almost here, and I'm getting excited just thinking about it. Appreciate everybody tuning in. It's always a pleasure to be on the air. And as always, we thank you for making Locked On Lions postcast your first listen following that final whistle. But for your second listen, you got to enjoy the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. That's right. Who doesn't love a fantasy football podcast? You can get daily insight, be the best fantasy drafter, learn all about the strategy so you can win your league this season. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to close it out. Lions win 24-23. Jake Bates, 4 field goals. Back in a moment on Locked On Lions. This episode of the Locked On Lions postcast is brought to you by LinkedIn and LinkedIn Talent Solutions. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. Brad Holmes, that's a guy that finds quality professionals. And that's a guy that would understand why you'd use LinkedIn, right? That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster. And get this, we all love this one, for free. That's right. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role, right? We're pro mobility around here, upward mobility, that is. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So the leading candidates are looking on LinkedIn. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, what the heck are you doing? You're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours, where you can hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. That's how it works, my friends. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. But one more time, I've got it for you. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, a couple more minutes to riff raff and close it out. Jake Bates, 4 for 4, including the game winner. He did miss an extra point, though. Lions beat the Chiefs 24-23. Defense had some ups and some downs. I think the long scoring touchdown at the in the second half was obviously one of the down moments. First touchdown, you put that more on the fumble by the Lions at that time. I think, with such a short field for the Chiefs offense to work with, even though it was Carson Wentz, it wasn't even Patrick Mahomes in there, but Xavier Worthy, the rookie, he might be a problem, but Jalen Calhoun you can't fumble that ball. And the 3 turnovers, the field position battle was lost. So a lot of things on special teams. And Matt Derry and I talked about how much I'm looking forward to the kickoff and the new kickoff rules, because once again, special teams are an important component to the game. And you saw the Chiefs and the Lions, for that matter, big returns, set up field position to ultimately lead to scoring drives, or in the Lions case, a failure on a kick return, fumbling it, resulted in a touchdown for the Chiefs very shortly thereafter. And I guess we'll make it positive at the end. The Lions punt return by Isaiah Williams. I know the punt return rules aren't any different, but the fact of the matter is it's a special teams play that really impacted the game in a great way, and a momentous way for the Lions to help them get that last field goal to win the game. But a couple couple more comments to get to as well. We've got Dennis checking in and appreciate that. Demetrius McNeil, double the win, double the fun. Absolutely 2 wins for the Tiger. Well, a win for the Tiger and a win for the Lions today. Brandon Joseph keeps making plays. I think he's in. Yeah, I put that in my notes as well. I didn't know if we'd get to that or not, but Brandon Joseph is a guy that I feel like the athleticism's there. And with more and more time in the system, if you will, maybe he's a guy that makes that roster. But again, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out with that last preseason game, which will be a week from today. I believe it's a Saturday game. I'll check real quick here. Lions, yes, it'll be at Ford Field August 24th. So the Lions' lone home game will be a week from today. And of course, we'll be live on the Locked On Lions postcast right afterwards. Locked On Sports Detroit. Make sure you subscribe. We've got fun things set up for this football season. And again, if you caught me on Matt Derry's Locked On Lions just the other day, I don't know if it was Thursday or Friday, I get my days mixed up, but we had a great time, and it's going to be so fun covering this team together because, again, I think, yes, we really dive into a preseason game here. It was fun. It was exciting. You get Jake Bates going 4 for 4, including the game winner. Hendon Hooker, some flashes of brilliance. And so those are all things to get excited about. But let's not forget, this is the defending NFC North champion, a team that had a lead in the second half of the NFC title game, a chance to go to the Super Bowl. This is a complete roster. You love the direction of this organization. There's no more feel-good story about the Lions. No, this is a complete roster. It's a favorite to win the division and then get back to the promised land and ultimately try to get to a Super Bowl for the first time in franchise history. Those are the stakes, and only one more preseason game. We got to do this position matchup and Isaiah Williams make the team. And and that's all good. It's all good. I'm not talking bad per se about the preseason, but man, I think I speak for everybody watching this live Locked On Lions postcast that comes Sunday night against the Los Angeles Rams and Matthew Stafford at Ford Field. Look out. Let's get wild. Let's get loud. That's going to be amazing. Cannot wait for that. And it's going to happen on September the 8th. All right. Appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, we appreciate you making Locked On Lions postcast your first listen. Don't forget to check out the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. You can get daily insight to the best fantasy football draft strategies so you can win your league. You can find the link on Locked On Fantasy Football in the description. Don't even have to search for it. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On Lions will be back on Monday with Matt Derry. What a tremendous job he does. I'll be tuned in. I know you will be as well. And Jacob here, we will wrap it up. We'll talk about Vaki. I talked about him quite a bit from the beginning because I tried to go in chronological order. But my notes on Vaki were just a very elusive running back. As you can see my notes here. Very elusive and great job pass catching. That's what I was most impressed of with his ability to catch passes. I put it in the description. I think he had 60 yards receiving, and a lot of them came on that final drive. Really good stuff. I think he makes the team. And Craig Reynolds, that's a guy with experience. I had no problem seeing him RB3. But let's not forget the running back position physically takes its toll, and to have extra guys, I like the idea of Vaki being a guy that can certainly help this Lions team. All right. Numbers are back for me, so I apologize for that. Zonovan Knight led in rushing with 36 yards on 8 carries. Sione Vaki, 6 carries for 22 yards. But like I mentioned, I was more impressed with his receiving abilities, 4 catches for 60 yards. But the leading receiver, Isaiah Williams, 6 receptions for 71 yards. And Caden Davis, I should have mentioned him earlier. He had the long touchdown. Only the 2 catches, but 61 yards and that long breakout touchdown, which was really, really good to see. Showed off some speed. I don't know if the 64 yards and the touchdown is going to look good, but obviously all that production on 1 catch. And so I don't know in terms of evaluation without going back and looking at the film to see what he did right, what he did wrong, and so on and so forth. But there is no doubt about it. He showed off the speed on that 61-yard touchdown reception. Sudfeld's final numbers, 14 of 27. So the accuracy just not there. 196 yards, 1 touchdown. That interception was not good, as they say. All right. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And as always, check out Locked On Lions with Matt Derry throughout the week. And we'll be back on Saturday. One more preseason game before we do this thing for real. Can't wait for that. Hey, do me a favor, like the video so the YouTube gods know how much we love the Locked On Lions postcast. Tell a friend about it and join us for some Locked On Tigers postcasts, and we'll get you set. This is your post-game destination for all things Detroit sports. Can't wait to have a fun season ahead and appreciate everybody tuning in. Have a wonderful evening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next time on the Locked On Sports Detroit Network. Locked on your team every single day. Thanks for making the Locked On Lions postcast your post-game destination. We'll see you next time, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a wonderful evening.